What's going on, guys? Welcome to my channel. I am turning this cargo trailer into a tiny house on wheels. And in this episode, I'm finally doing my floor. I'm really excited about this one. It's been a huge improvement, so let's get right into it. The last you've seen of the floor, it's just a 3/4 inch thick plywood subfloor that came with the trailer. I painted it this orange with the porch paint, and I installed my water tank box underneath. So that's what you see poking up my water tanks there. Then on top of the subfloor, we do a 1 inch thick piece of XPS foam board insulation, cut to fit around the water tanks. And I designed it so the water tanks were flush with the top of this insulation. Then on top of the insulation, I have a 3/8 plywood underlayment. Now, I had already cut the plywood to size, and I also cut hatch doors in it so that I can access the fittings on my water tank. So the next step, now that I have hatch doors cut out of my insulation, is to glue down the insulation to the subfloor. And if you look closely, you can also see me doing some spray foam insulation in the gaps on the sides. So now I just need to lay down my plywood underlayment, but first let me tell you about my crazy idea. So I've come up with 4 different ways to keep my water tanks from freezing. And one of those ways is to plumb hot air directly from behind my wood stove down into my water tank box. And to do that, I need an air duct running through the floor. So that is what I'm installing here. Now, I bought this flexible air duct, and my hope is that I will be able to crush it down to be 1 inch thick so it sits within the profile of the insulation, and my wooden underlayment can go right on top of that and sit flush with the top of the insulation. Now, as you can probably tell, that's not as easy as it sounds, but I kind of got it to work. So the next thing I'm going to do is apply these foam weather stripping to the top of my water tanks just to provide some sort of barrier in between the top of the water tanks and the plywood. And now all I need to do is lay down my 3/8 plywood underlayment on top of this, and that's pretty much it, right? All right, update on my floor. Basically, the other day I laid down my 3/8 underlayment, if you would call it, floor. So this is my 3/8 board that I was planning to put underneath my vinyl. And I laid this down on top of my insulation, and there was not enough support over the water tanks. My initial plan was to have the bottom of this 3/8 board directly on top of the water tanks, and it was sagging too much for the floor. So, new plan is I need to lay down, basically raise the floor up 3/4 of an inch and lay down 3/4 inch plywood on top of the water tanks and 3/4 inch insulation everywhere else, so the floor is nice and level. So that's essentially what I've done here. We got my biggest piece of 3/4 plywood laid down right over top of the water tanks where my main walkway will be in the trailer. This will be my entranceway, so I got a few more pieces here. And now my next step is to basically just do a mosaic of 3/4 inch plywood and 3/4 inch insulation along the whole floor. And then my 3/8 thick boards will go on top of that. And then on top of that is my rubber mat. And then on top of that is my vinyl. So let's do it. The other issue I was having is this hose, my air duct hose here. It wasn't crushing quite as well as I would liked. I was hoping it would crush down to 1 inch thick, and it wasn't doing that. But now that I'm raising this up, it has 1 3/4, which is plenty of room, so it'll sit nice in there. This was actually kind of fun, trying to piece together little bits of 3/4 inch thick plywood and insulation out of whatever, my scrap pile, to try to get this all to fit nicely together. And see, I had to make a little cutout to go around where I had already put the hose. And there you have it. That's a nice solid floor. That's going to work pretty well as my base. The next step is my rubber mat and my vinyl, but before I do that, I wanted to finish up the insulation on the ceiling because I have to use these little thin pieces of plywood to prop up the ceiling panels while the glue dries. So I didn't want to do that on top of my nice vinyl floor. Okay, now that my ceiling insulation is all done and dried, it's time to pull out these pieces of wood and get the rubber mat down. So the first thing I'm going to do is just trim the spray foam insulation excess along the edges so that I have a nice smooth edge. And I had a little insulation malfunction on the ceiling that I just needed to take care of real quick here. And then the process here is I just use my spray adhesive on the underside of the rubber mat, on half of it, lay it down, and then peel up the other half and spray it and lay it down. I used like a 3M high strength spray adhesive. I'm not really sure if this was the best option, especially since I had to use like a few cans and it was pretty expensive. But it worked for my purpose. And you'll probably notice I'm not covering the entire floor, and that's because I just bought one roll of this stuff and I figured it doesn't need to be underneath my furniture.
It's time to put the floor in. Let's do it.
And this is the moment you've all been waiting for, or at the very least, the moment I've been waiting for months. Getting my beautiful vinyl floor in the trailer.
We're videotaping. I just gotta adjust this. So I've never done vinyl flooring before, but apparently you have to let it sit for 24 hours to kind of settle before like gluing it down, before trimming it and gluing it down. So I'm gonna do a rough trim, so it's like 2 inches, 3 inches on every side, and then gonna let it sit for a while.
Getting pretty excited here. This is what it looks like, not glued down yet, but just roughly trimmed in place.
Morning, guys. I'm out here installing flooring in the rain. It's not actually raining anymore. It stopped raining, but my trailer's dripping all over this. That's fine. Did find a new leak, so that wasn't great. Found a nice puddle on my nice vinyl floor, but I'm gonna stick it down anyway because I don't have another option. We're doing it right now. Let's go. Hopefully moisture doesn't get underneath. That's my only concern. Bit of a concern. But I'm gonna do it anyway. Let's see how it goes. All right. Step one, trim the edges to size. So this whole piece of vinyl is going to be trimmed down right to exactly how I want it. And then step two is peel back half of it, lay down the glue, then lay it down on top, and then peel back the other half, lay down the glue, and lay it down on top. And that's pretty much it. Let's go. Trying not to get mud in the trailer. You know, I'm gonna go to time lapse, but I'm taking my shoes off every time I go in to not get mud in there.
And yeah, the procedure is exactly like I just said. Peel back half of it. I used like a roll-on flooring adhesive for this, which ended up working really well. Has a bit of a more flexible working time than the spray-on adhesive that I was using for the rubber mat. So that helped a lot in getting it positioned after I laid it down, which was honestly super tricky. And there you have it. My beautiful vinyl floor is all done and ready to go. The next step is furniture, so that'll be coming out in the next video next week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with everyone you know. Thanks for watching.